Welcome to the sunny side of freedom. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I am joined by retired Navy Chief Chris, 21 years of service. Welcome on to the podcast, Chief. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
It's my pleasure to be here, Sunny. How you doing?
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. I cannot wait to start having you share your story with us. And for those of you that are new to Sunny here on the Sunny Side of Freedom podcast on the YouTube channel, Sunny tries really hard to get our veteran stories out because each story matters and you don't know who needs to hear it. They're so impactful in so many different ways, and each story touches people in many different ways as well. Time and time again, Sunny will say, "Thank you. That was great. I needed to hear that." Or, "Wow, I thought I was alone and I'm not." And at the end of the day, that's what it's about, raising awareness because veterans do matter, their stories matter, and raising awareness at 22 a day. And for those of you that are new here, are unfamiliar with what 22 a day stands for, it's the veteran suicide crisis. Now, for those of us that raise awareness to this growing epidemic, we're very familiar with the fact that 22 is just a symbolistic number. This number we know to be much greater, and it's sad. It's sad, and that's why we continue to do what we do to the best of our ability in raising awareness to the veteran suicide crisis. Like we're doing here right now, creating a space and a place for our veterans to share their voices. So I'm going to hand it on over to you, Chief. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Sunny. Excuse the nervousness. This is the first time I've done an interview like anything close to this. But we've talked about a little bit about that. I'll loosen up, I think, here in a little bit. Um, my career started in 1986, actually. A scared, homeless, drug addict. I wasn't an addict, but I was heavily into drugs and needed a way out. And I didn't see any kind of hope for my future ahead of me. I was confused, a young kid, and so I decided to step out my comfort zone for the first time, and I went and joined the Navy. Did a 4-year active duty tour to get out of California. And the irony is, I ended up being stationed back in California. So there's that. There's the typical, careful what you wish for or don't wish for. But I joined in 1987, January 5th. I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, California boy, going to Great Lakes in the middle of winter. That was a wake up call for my first journey out of the state. Um, then my career started. I did 4 years. Decided to reenlist, do another 3 years on shore duty to see what that life was like. And in the process, like a lot of other people in the service, had a couple of kids, and that kind of changed the whole trajectory of my plans of getting out. So I reenlisted again, and then went past that 10-year mark. And anybody that's done time in the service, that's the line right there. What are you gonna do? You're gonna get out. You're gonna stay in, and mine was kind of a no choice and a choice. I had kids I had to take care of now, so responsibilities and money and all that stuff had to come into play, medical stuff, and then as well. So, anyways, the career took off, and I ended up doing 21 years, close to 21 years, and then I retired in 2007.
Thank you for your service.
It was my honor to serve. People ask, it's kind of that's one of those weird things, when people say thank you for your service. Yeah, you get kind of
I know.
you've done enough interviews, you kind of get it, you kind of go, okay, but where do you go from there? It's like it really it is service, but for a lot of us, it's a job just like anybody else does a career, in any other job field that they do in the civilian world. That's what it turns into. It's a lifestyle. It's just the way we are. And so when you say thank you for your service, would be like me saying, somebody working at Costco, thank you for your service at Costco. What would they say? You know, and
Well, I mean, if we're gonna be fair, signing on that dotted line means you might not come home.
right, right. but it's just
In
it's
all
still awesome
seriousness,
for veterans, and so I usually just say it was my honor to serve, I mean, I wouldn't have put in almost 21 years if I didn't like some of it, so there's that.
well, since you bring that up, uh, what are some things you did like about it? The service.
Um, well, I was an aviation electrician's mate, so, I went into the field of, aircraft aviation, and, I dealt with anything that had a wire attached to it, and that was kind of where my passion drove me into service. I mean, of course, there's the camaraderie and growing up together and meeting new people and the all the adventure stuff. So there's a lot that I love about the Navy. You know, the adventure, seeing the world. Um, that's all part of it. But yeah, I mean, you gotta like what you're doing at the end of the day. I mean, I was there to work on aircraft. I work on the flight deck of carriers. It's a dangerous environment, and I spent a lot of time on that flight deck. A lot of my career was spent there, and I loved it. The I think looking back, it was and I talked to a lot of fellow veterans that have worked up on the roof, as we call it, and it's the adrenaline. We're adrenaline junkies, and the job turns into that, and so that's another big issue that I gotta deal with on a daily basis, and, is living a lifestyle of constant adrenaline rush and then turning it off when you retire or get out. That's that's the tough part, but that's the exciting part that for me was the 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 chaos, the controlled chaos, so to speak, the crazy dance we did on the flight deck. You can't hear, you can't, you're getting blown around. Everything is dangerous, and so everything's just top-notch dopamine and adrenaline constantly, and, comes that you know, that's how it works.
So let's talk
That's
about that a
that's
little
all
bit. And
uh
for our viewers
Yeah,
today, one of the things that Sunny learned a few years back when I started hosting Veteran Lives on my TikTok platform and started the interviewing here on this podcast about 2 years ago or so. At first, I couldn't understand when I heard a veteran say, I'd rather be back. Because as civilians, all we envision is, a veteran, someone in the military, it's a war zone. Why would you want to go back? We don't understand this. So much of my mission is raising that awareness and gaining that perspective, understanding of why our veterans feel the way they do because of what they experienced. And there's so much there to even unpack. But I've gained understanding throughout these conversations and having you all share your stories. It is that adrenaline, right? It's that structure. It's so many, the discipline. And then you and I talked a little bit about the chaos of the civilian world. And then you're like, okay, you're done. And you're like, oh my God, now I'm back. Now you're here. And us civilians expect you to be thrilled that you're back here and you're
right,
like, "Oh, wow, where do I fit in?" Let's talk a little bit about that,
yeah.
because so many struggle with that, assimilating back into the civilian work, civilian world, and family life.
That's a tough one. I would like to say, yeah, it's an easy transition, but I have not heard one person say it's an easy transition. And, unless they were seeking out in like they had a bad experience. But other than that, it so there's two different types of chaos that I see. One is the military, right? And people, the civilians look at it and they go, "Wow, how do you guys do all that? Bombs booming, all this other stuff happening, flight deck, aircraft carrier operations, all this stuff happening, right?" And when we get out, as well, I know my perspective is when I got out, it was the same kind of chaos, but there was no controls in place, if that makes kind of sense. Our chaos had controls. It had rules, regulations, guidelines, borders, all that stuff in our heads of what we can and can't do. And it seems like for me when I got out, it's a lot of like looking at unfurled lines. Is this it just craziness. There's no hey, what's the rules, guidelines? People are just off so far off of it that I don't know, for me, it's been hard to wrap my head around. It's crazy. It's just literally to us, it's like looking at a freaking circus out there, and that's what it feels like. It's like, does anybody know anything, you know? And it's not that us as veterans know anymore. I think it's just that we've been so grounded in common sense because of our jobs and our style of living for so long that it's kept us alive. It's kept our buddies alive. It's it works where people die. And that's kind of the what we're kind of foundational, I think, in the like kind of the subconscious level. That's where we sit all the time now. And so when we see the chaos in the world and somebody cuts me off on traffic and I lose my shit, you know? So when we're trying to assimilate, it's like, where's your mind? What are you doing? How come you're not focused? And so I try to apply how I see the world to other people. And that's, of course, that's not going to work out very well for me because
It's definitely hard. I've actually seen some memes and stuff, where veterans are like, "How hard is it for you to make a cup of coffee? Do you even know?" It's like the simplest things are so difficult. I will have to say that, just having all the conversations that I've had with our veteran community, that structure and that discipline is what they miss. They miss having that on a day to day, organized thinking, and also solution based. Having a solution because you need one, like you
right,
said. It can mean living and dying, period. Whereas here, everything is a problem and no one wants to fix it or knows how to fix it, or we just become so complacent as a society that we figure someone else will fix it. Like, you know,
right, yeah, the focus isn't there. Like it's not the same. And I don't know. I kind of lose my train of thought sometimes. So
that's okay. I suffer from CRS some days too, more days than not. So it's normal. That means we're normal, whatever that means, right?
right, right.
Define normal.
Well, we were
Um,
talking about that earlier. The structure stuff, and it's it is way out of control. It's now that I'm thinking more and more about it, and I got to stop thinking about it because it gets down a rabbit hole, and I start getting fired up about shit. And it's not like it's going to trigger me into doing anything stupid. It's annoying. It's just the annoying part of it.
we have a
Common
lot of
sense.
unnecessary nonsense going on in our
Right,
world.
and you were talking about steps. Now I'm kind of remembering where we're going now.
Yeah.
When we talk about steps to doing things, and it's funny because in my head I'm stepping it on. How many steps does it take me to make a cup of coffee? How many scoops? How much water? I mean, everything is like that, and I don't know. I think it's trying to fill in the structure I missed from the Navy. I'm trying to get into. I put myself into my own boxes. Does that make sense? So I do my own kind of living in that same kind of try to put myself in that same busy, 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 busy work to keep my mind going, 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 and focused on something else. But I have to put my focus on it, or my mind goes scattered. It goes. It's
Yeah.
like there's no net holding the thoughts anymore, and I have no control over it. And now everything is flooding in, past, present, future, all that stuff, and that's where I get in trouble, and that kinda leads us into where I think we're going with this as far as, how it affects, and how it affects my life as far as addiction and alcohol use and that stuff in my life, because that played a big role to fill all of that stuff up, before, during, and after my Navy career. So, yeah, that sends down a whole 'nother dark road, and I think we're
Well,
gonna touch on that a little bit, hopefully in a
we
positive.
are. And I thank you. We can actually lead the conversation that way because with chaos, whether it's organized or unorganized, it still affects our mental health. It affects our coping mechanisms. And how do we handle, chaos for the average person? I mean, you can talk to anybody. Nobody really handles chaos. It just looks different. And I know for you and your story, I know you'd like to talk a little bit about that and leading us obviously to where you are today. And I'm going to give it over to you and let you share.
Yeah, so the adapting to life was very, very difficult. I got a really good job after I retired. There's where I was at, and some people that are probably listening, that I served with, if they are listening, they'll relate. The area that I retired in, you had two choices, as pretty much two choices, where you wanted to go as far as career wise, based on my geographical area. So I retired in Central California. So I got out of the Navy. I was an electrician, worked on aircraft, and I went into the oil fields. Complete contracts, out of the box as it seems, but there's more to it than that. The reason why I chose that field, number one, I could have worked probably at any airport I wanted to. Airplanes are airplanes. It doesn't matter if they carry missiles or they don't. They're still the same aircraft. So I wanted to get out of that. It was a 21-year career. Most people that work on something for 20 years or so, they're ready to move on. And it's the same. It was the same for me. So I I worked in the oil fields. I got hired on by Chevron Corporation. Um, they like the managerial skills of a chief and all that stuff. So they looked at all that. I got hired on pretty quick, and I ran facilities. Facilities is the oil plants. That's the oil pumping units that you see out there pumping that go up and down. They bring the oil up, it comes to the plant, and that's where I took over as far as a facilitator. I monitored a bunch of computers, tank levels, and all kinds of stuff that happens in the oil field to get processed to get to your gas pump. Great job. The reason why it was such a great fit for me is because the same kind of dangers are inherent in the oil field is the same kind of dangers that I dealt with in the military. If you make a wrong move, people die. If you turn a wrong valve, things go kaboom. Okay, so I kind of consciously put myself into another field of a job field that kept the adrenaline running. You never knew what was going to happen in the oil field. Things can go crazy really quick. So it was kind of like a hand in glove fit for me to go into the oil field. So I did that for quite a few years. The thing was the coping mechanism of the civilian world. Even though I had that part of it, I still had a trouble dealing with day-to-day life, of dealing with peopling. And that's the thing. And people that don't see eye to eye to what we see as veterans. And that's a very hard thing to deal with. I drank in the Navy, just like most people do. And I say that because I didn't see most sober people while I was in the Navy, because I didn't hang out with sober people while I was in the Navy. I hung out with like-minded people, and usually that meant getting off the ship and heading to the first bar. Um, and that was probably my first couple of deployments out of 6 deployments was living in a bar, and there was no sightseeing, checking out the country. That was nowhere even on the clue of things. Um, Anyways, to kind of fast forward, so I'm not keeping us dragged here. My drinking increased exponentially. Not so much while I was working. What happened is in the oil fields, around 2015, I went on disability. I ended up needing to get neck surgery. I had degenerative disc disease in my neck on C6 and C7, um, caused bone spurs, other issues. It was pinching on a bunch of nerves, causing all kinds of pain. Of course, my mind is, alcohol's pain medicine, right? So we're seeing where that goes. So my non-working and functionality as a functioning alcoholic at that time was taken away. And so disability opened the door to a lot of things that led down some very dark road for the next 5 years of my life, from 2015 to 2020. Um, uh, Pain medicines increased, alcohol increased, and by my fifth year or third, third or fourth year of that disability, I was full blown isolation, full blown drinking hard liquor, and until I could sleep, and then wake up and start drinking again. And the cycle got super vicious. To I can't talk about on here. Medically, the stuff that was happening to me got very, very severe. Um, and so that takes me up to where I ended up getting a DUI. Uh, I was walking around as a .31 on the blood alcohol level. That was my normal. It was normal for me to wake up and take 4 shots as soon as I before I even got out of bed. It was normal for me to have a drink to go out the front door, um, to do anything. I moved my coffee table into my bedroom just so I can have stuff to put my booze on and feel comfortable in my bedroom. I wasn't even comfortable in my living room. That's how bad the isolation got, and I was a very social person, and anybody out there that knew me while I was in, and I got probably family members, I'm a very social person. This took me down to a place I never knew I would get, and so, in June 6th of 2020, I got a DUI, doing a spontaneous thing, craziness. COVID was out, everything was kind of weird in the world, and, in my eyes, I was like, "F it, the whole world can just go to hell," and, I decided to go do donuts in a farm field with my Jeep, and, the local police didn't approve of that. So, that was where everything started for me on my journey to sobriety into where I'm at today. Started with those doing those donuts in a farm field, and that takes us into another trajectory of my recovery, so if you wanna add in
Yeah,
anything here at this point.
absolutely. Um, it's amazing when we listen to stories and it's like, I was gonna ask you, what was your rock bottom? I think for you, it was just innocently going out there like, to heck with it. I'm gonna go do some donuts because this world is crazy. And you found your rock bottom. Did you find it in that prison cell? Where exactly did you find that rock bottom, which led you into recovery?
Well, I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in trouble before the DUI, incident. Um, I had lost massive amounts of weight. I was eating pills, my pain meds, a handful 3 times a day. I was dedicated, like a good soldier. I had my alarm set. I wasn't gonna abuse my pills. But that alcohol had free reign on all of it. And so, with the combination of those 2, and in my DUI, that was the big one. When I got that DUI, it my world kind of imploded in a way that I didn't know was gonna happen, because that "screw it" just turned into a consequence that I had no control over, and, I knew it was a bad one. I knew it was bad. Uh, yeah, no judge is gonna look at a .31 and say, "Oh, you're okay," and I had a prior DUI, which was turned into a wet and reckless 9.5 years earlier. So what that means is in California, that counts as 2 consecutive DUIs automatically. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that one DUI turned into back-to-back DUIs, which is a completely different set of consequences
Right.
exponentially. So, what did I do? I isolated for the next couple of days and tried to, I played with my 9 millimeter, cleaned it up really good, um, test fitted it a couple of times. Uh, that went through my head. I talked to you earlier about having a family member that committed suicide, and alcohol was a big part of that. And that's what kept running through my head, believe it or not, in my saturated state of I don't even know what I was at that time, because I threw my arms up. I was gonna drink myself to death, or I was gonna put a nice hole through my head, and, I decided the hole in the head was probably a bad idea. It'd be too messy for too many people, and so because I remembered my stepsister, right? So I was like, "That still affects me today. I'm gonna screw everybody up for the rest of the world. My way is the easy way out. Everybody else is gonna get screwed." So, I decided to try to drink myself to death. Just drink, 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 drink. Just every time I opened my eyes, I drank for the next 2 days. I finally made a phone call in the middle of the night to a recovery center, and it's the craziest story. It's out of the blue. Had no inkling idea. I had none. Recovery was not in the picture. So a commercial came on TV late at night. Of course, probably point 0.5 by then. Who knows? And but I remember this specific moment, which is amazing. And so this commercial came on for recovery. I blew it off. Matter of fact, it reminded me I should take a shot right now, and that's what I did. I took another shot. Nice recovery video. Cool, cool. And on TV, and then another commercial came on, and then the same commercial came on again. And I was like, all right, of course, my brain's going conspiracy theory. Somebody's messing with me, right? But it's late night. They play commercials on repeat. But this is my drunk state of mind. So I called the number, and I think it was just to test the system, right? I just wanted to. I don't know why I did. I called the number. It rang one time. I hung up, and the first thing that went to my head is, Chris, what the f are you doing? What are you doing right now? Why are you doing this? Why are you calling this number? Right? And within 10 seconds, that phone rang, and they called me back. And I talked to a guy on the phone that I can only mark as an angel. This is great stuff.
I'm happy you're here, Chief.
So he answered all my questions. We talked on the phone, and I lost it. Lost it. It was emotional. Still is. I think the biggest reason why it was so emotional is I knew I was in.
As Chris is sharing, many of our veterans find themselves in a place where they find themselves in a place of trouble. And the courage that it took for you to pick up that phone speaks volumes, sir. And that's a great message for anyone watching today. Pick up the phone and reach out to someone, whether it be 988, a crisis hotline, a recovery center, a friend, a family member, because it will change the trajectory of where you're headed. And I'm super proud of you. I know it's not easy to talk about. And anytime we have anything that's traumatic that happens in our life, yes, when we talk about it, although we're capable of talking about it, it will always stir up a sense of emotion
Yeah.
because it brings us back to a place in time.
And this this is not a negative emotion. Okay, this is a happy moment that happened in my life that I'm grateful for, because all of that was the start of my journey. Picking up the call, picking up that phone, right? That was the hardest part. And I, even though as silly as it sounds, mine was spontaneous. I picked it up to call it, and I have no idea why. I went with it, right? Because I have no idea why. I don't have an answer. It wasn't like I was seeking recovery. It was the complete opposite. I was seeking to get away from this planet. And so to have the brakes pumped on that and do a 180 into recovery was such a mind blower, um, for me. Um, I just went with it. I leaned into it. I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, I can't fly out. They wanted me to go to Florida. And I said, no, I no way. I can't fly out. I can't afford it. They said, no problem. We got it. We got you. And I was like, I can't pay you back. Don't worry about it. We got you.
So you flew out to Florida. At
Yeah.
this time in your life, were you married? Did you have children?
No, I was not. Divorced. I was with my current wife at the time, but we were dating, and it was a long distance relationship, which made things even tougher. And that didn't help the drinking issues, right? That just exasperated it because now I'm trying to have a relationship out of two failed marriages, which sucked. But and it sucked for everybody. It wasn't just me. It sucked for her. It sucked for the kid. It sucked for everybody. Um, the important part is I know my role in it, right? What was my role in there? But getting into recovery and heading in that trajectory and picking up that phone, um, was a life changer. And if I can encourage anybody is don't be afraid. Don't let fear run the show. There are people, even though you in my head, I didn't think there was anybody out there. I truly did. I thought, we're taught to suck it up. We're taught to fucking figure it out, shove that shit down, and mission oriented. Complete the mission. That's the job. And so with that plugged into my head with everything, and a lot of veterans have the same thought process. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Same thing. What's the mission? Don't know. Fuck. It's done. Everything goes to shit, and that's that structure part. So, wife and kids, no. Relationship, yeah. That got put on hold about my third year into my uncontrolled drinking, and she stepped back. She had to. She was watching me die, and she couldn't do it. And it was a long distance relationship, so that made it difficult on top of everything else. So, um, the kids were there. My son, I have three. Two of them live with their first mother. Don't have a whole lot of contact with them, but I love them with all my heart. And my youngest kid, he's 26 now, going on 26. Um, he's the one that probably was majorly affected by all of this, you know. And I spend a lot of time making amends with that guy.
Does he
Most
follow you? Does he follow
99%
you?
of it, yeah, 99% of it is a living amends, which means I have to live a certain way, and that means being available for him all times. So, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, does he follow you on social media? Is there a chance that he might see this today?
No,
Okay.
no, he doesn't do it. He used to it. He doesn't do social media, but um, we talk and we share, and it's just like any other mom, dad and son relationship. There's ups and downs and incidents.
Absolutely,
But,
absolutely.
but as far as what we're talking about here, as far as, like, alcoholism and how that affects your children and all that stuff, absolutely. You don't you I thought I wasn't hurting my kid, and he probably takes a lot of it is he doesn't feel like he was hurt either, but when you get sober, man, you look back at all that stuff and you go, "Oh, no, no, I was a horrible person. I should have been there more. I should have done this." And, for me, it sucks because my regrets and my, I can't live in all that stuff, but I can look back and learn from it. And it was just like as I was going through my recovery journey, look back and go, how many events did I go to my son's football games and all that stuff? Or booze had to be there too, right? It had to be there. Either if it can't be at the stadium watching my kid play, then it was pre-gaming or it was coming in a different cup. And that's the bullshit about the whole disease, It runs your life, and you know, we get complacent behind it. We talked about complacency and all kinds of other stuff. So, um,
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because drinking alcohol, um, socially acceptable. It's socially acceptable. Alcohol does is destroy lives at every level. Destroys relationships. It destroys parts of ourselves that we don't even recognize anymore. Um, and I'm very happy that you're here with me today. I feel very honored to have you here. Thank you for because it takes courage for anyone out there. It does take courage to get on a social media platform to want to share some of your hardest moments in life. It's not easy, but your message is very important because you're demonstrating how difficult it really was to reach out and start your own recovery. It's been 5.5 years now.
yeah, it's going on 6 June will be 6 years, and man, it's been the journey, And we talked about that. I went to Florida, and that's purely because I was instinctual. I didn't. I was on total autopilot going into my recovery. It was 7 days of detox when I got there. That was a little trip into hell that I would not recommend for anybody. I was coming off of pain pills, multiple pain pills, and and alcohol. And I didn't realize when I went there to detox that it was okay. Monitor me while I go through my booze detox, right? Yeah, they took my medication that was prescribed to me, and that's where I was like, I'm in big trouble again because you're taking stuff that's preventing my pain away, right? And yeah, 7 days in there was a traumatic story that I won't share here, but I do in group settings of AA and that kind of stuff. In group settings where we're sharing stories, I go through my experience in detox, which I don't recommend for anybody. But the point of this story is getting to the recovery part, right? Getting to the solution-based side of the house. My journey is probably the same story as most people that have been through any kind of hardship that hit their bottom. That was my bottom. My bottom was in the basement, you know? It was all the way down. Some people get off on the 4th floor, some people get off on the lobby floor. Mine was in the basement, and it was at the very, very bottom. So, I have a lot to give back because of that. Um, I've gone down those roads. So picking up the phone, asking for help, huge. Have to do that. The next part for me was to put down the drink and then get freaking honest with myself because I never, I've always thought myself as good character, good moral character, honest guy, speak my mind, that kind of stuff. But when it came to this particular situation, I had to get serious about it again, right? Am I being truly honest with myself? And it came to a quick question for me. It wasn't about how much I drank because that's an impossible number for me to count. I started drinking when I was around 12. So that's a lot of booze. And 43 years of drinking, I went to recovery as pretty much an old timer. I was 54. So I'm kind of aging myself. I'm approaching 60. So but when I got in there, my question was how much did how do I define my alcoholism, right? How do I put that into a picture, in my head? How can I define it? I drank a lot. Yeah, a lot of people drink a lot. What's the level of drink, right? So I had to change the question. I had to change the question in my head. It wasn't about how much I drank. It was when I had an opportunity not to drink, did I take it? When I had an opportunity to make a choice of, I'm going to take today off, or I'm going to take a week off, or I'm going to take a month off of drinking and just get my shit together, right? And for me, I couldn't think of a number, not even one. And that's when I know I was like, I'm in trouble, right? I don't know. I had never made a conscious choice to not drink. And that was the way I had to approach things. So I got honest. I got honest about my alcoholism. Am I an alcoholic? And I had to go deep. And I had to go deep enough to where God touched me. That moment, I had never been more honest in my life. And that started my journey. That was scary. It was the hardest thing I ever did. But I came into part of my solution was Chris. You can find out who Chris is now. Clean slate, set the foundation of who I'm going to be from this point on. Basically, reinvent myself, but in the opposite, find out who I am. Because 43 years of drinking, I have no idea who the hell I was. Where was my honesty level? What was my thought process? Were they common sense? Were they alcohol influenced? And that's where the scary thing, because there's a lot of time in my life where I made decisions while I was drinking. A lot of them. Were they the right ones? I don't know. But it got me here. And so part of this journey for the last 5.5 years is not so much as putting the drink down. That's the easy part. The work comes is after that. How do I keep from not drinking, right? How do I stay sobriety? How do I do this impossible task of taking this big thing that fills all the holes, all my emotional needs? I got to take it and bury it. And that funeral is hard, hard. walking that line and making that call is tough. It's tough, I know. 43 years of drinking. Man, to say goodbye to my best friend, alcohol, ah, man, that's tough.
I've actually talked about that, Chief, on a few different occasions, actually, whether it was in an interview or on my TikTok platform where Sunny hosts a Veterans Live on Fridays. When we have to rediscover, re identify with who we are, like, who am I now? What is my purpose? All of that is so difficult because you're right. It is a grieving phase in our lives because we're no longer those individuals, whether it is being a victim to circumstances, being a victim of the past, and staying a prisoner to the past. So difficult for so many of us to let go of and kind of take that leap of faith into who am I? Who am I today? Because I'm here to tell anyone viewing today, you are not the person you were 10 years ago. Life is constantly happening to us, around us. Life's experiences have molded us, reshaped us. And it comes with that moment in time of being honest with oneself and saying, I have to embrace where I am today and choose to live, choose to invest in you every single day. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you, Chief, because I know that our viewers are anxious to hear about where you are. And like you, sir, many have found the big guy. The big guy has come to us in our darkest moments, not while we were in a building or surrounded by others, but usually on our own during that moment of trauma and difficulty of choosing. And I want to hear, because it sounds to me, and I know you and I've heard parts of your story, you're no longer just surviving, you're thriving in what you're doing day in and day out. But I also want to make it clear that thriving doesn't mean it comes easy. It comes with a daily commitment of investing in oneself and self love. And at any given moment, anything or circumstances, experiences can bring us back with one decision.
Yeah. So this the spiritual awakening, right? That's yeah. All right. So to get into my situation, it's another super personal thing because that for me, I of course know God. I grew up around God, um, but did I have a relationship with God? Right. That's the key. And I didn't. I thought I did. I thought it was okay enough. And the last 5.5 years, my journey and my spiritual awakening and my spiritual journey. I'm a Christian, and I'm proud to be a Christian. And um, I love Jesus. God saved me, and I'll tell you, in my world, what happened was I kept looking forward. Right? They have in recovery. They say don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle. They have all kinds of things and sayings out there. And so for me, my initial knee-jerk reaction is to look forward. I'm looking for the miracles. I'm looking for the spiritual change. I'm looking for the light to come down. I want to see the burning bush. All this stuff, right? Because now I'm reinventing Chris. I'm trying to figure out who Chris is. So I'm being more open. And so one of the first things I learned was just to crack the door of faith. Just crack it. I don't have to be know the whole Bible. I don't have to do all that stuff. This is for me. This is how I work through it. All I do is crack that door. God will do the rest. Just got to open up the faith a little bit, just a little bit, right? Camel through that needle of an eye, the mustard seed, all that stuff. Yeah, it's all true. And it really is. Um, but there came a time where I stopped and I had an epiphany. I don't remember exactly when, a few months into recovery that I kept looking forward, looking forward, looking forward. And something in my head said, stop and take a look back for a second. Look where you came from. Right. And we're talking months into my recovery, but it was important that that don't forget where I come from. And that's something I got from the Navy. Don't forget as you put on rank, don't forget where you came from. So I looked back at my life and was like, wow, my DUI, my donuts in the field got me here, right? My journey across country to detox got me here. Through detox got me here, you know? And so each one of those things were choices made. And each one of those choices was a nudge from God because I had no AA. There was no big book of Alcoholics Anonymous for Christopher Stone. That was never in my sights. Zero. I showed up to recovery because I needed a certificate to show a judge that I didn't have an alcohol problem. Yeah, things changed immediately when I looked at it and said, "No, no, 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 no. I got to I have to do this." And the miracle's already happening. It's already happening. I'm here. That's how that works. That's how it worked for me. That's when I knew I was having a relationship because you'll know it. I did, and I wasn't a strong believer. I was missing a lot of that spirituality, and that's where alcohol filled a lot of that up with, right? I when I put down that booze, it wasn't just putting down alcohol. It left a big giant hole in me, huge, that I have to fill it with something, you know? It was empty. I took all the booze away, all my emotional support team, my buddies, my friends, my everything that I depended on went away. So you got to put something back in. And spirituality usually comes with people that go into a program, that go into Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever program that works for you. Usually the spirituality is going to come with it hand in hand eventually. And that's what happened to me. And it happened rapid and I've embraced it. I leaned into it and it's 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 saved me. It literally truest form, you know, reborn, saved. Yeah, it is. And yeah, it does. It works. It's nice to know that I can be held accountable when I'm all by myself. See, isolation, I'm running in my head. I'm running my own show. I'm the master of my universe, and I'm not. So giving up that control was a big thing for me. And stop running the world like I'm in control of everything because I'm not. And sometimes it's okay to let go and let God's will be God's will. Because I know that when I run on self-will, I get in trouble. It almost kills me when I start running shit out of my own head. It drives me to knock on death's door, and so I need to rethink about how I wanna be in my life and in my trajectory if I plan on sticking around here for any amount of time. So what do I do with that? I fill my hole with service. I help veterans. Uh, I sponsor veterans. I run groups, um, and it fills a hole.
Thank you for answering that. I was actually gonna ask you, tell us what you're doing now and how you're filling that void, and what replaced alcohol, and that's amazing. You wanna talk a little bit more about that? You said you're running AA meetings now and also sponsoring veterans, correct?
Yeah, so I run meetings. I do a meeting on Mondays and Thursdays, and if anybody out there is interested, just you know how to get a hold of me, and I can get you that information. And we're happy to have you. Happy to have you. Come on in, and it's a safe place for veterans to come and feel comfortable. That's the reason why I started these meetings, and a lot of other veterans that are in programs that start meetings too, is to be have like-minded people in the same room. It's hard in an environment, even in the recovery world, where veterans have to sit in with civilians, and there's nothing wrong with it. We're not afraid of civilians. Don't be worried. You don't got the cooties. We just not like-minded. So there's a little different trajectory of thinking in the recovery world that veterans kind of need a different approach than a civilian would need. Like I could put my foot in somebody's ass in a AA meeting with veterans, and they would get it, and a civilian probably wouldn't. So there's a different approach in the mental way of handling that, which is cool because it makes it a little bit more comfortable in sharing your stories in those kind of settings. So, and that's what I try to do. I make it comfortable. We're here to help each other out. We've all been in our own shit in our own heads. We've been in our own battles. We've been in our own wars. And I don't care what you did physically. I don't care you're a SEAL or fucking an airman. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got out for 4 years, you're traumatized. It doesn't matter if you did 21 years, you're traumatized. Okay. It's just the way life is. You were traumatized before you even went in. So let's start there. Okay. So that's what I do. I try to bring awareness to these people that you're not alone. We're all thinking the same shit. It's just we have a hard time communicating, getting that out. We're blocked up with fear. We're blocked up with anxiety. We're blocked up with all this stuff. It's noise. And so I try to work to filter that out. Try to filter out the noise. Let's get rid of the chaos. Let's get to the root of the issues. Let's build a new foundation. And yeah, you can restart right fuck now. You can do it right today. I did it at 54. Anybody can do it. So, I run 2 meetings. I support vets. I love every single one of them, even the knuckle dragging grunts, right? I love my eating Marines, my Army guys, everybody, even Space Force. Wow. But anyways, all of them, love them all. And I think a lot of it is misunderstanding. It's a lot of communication issues, and that's where a lot of like-minded vets like myself and a lot my people that help like yourself, Sonny, that go out there and actively seek these people out because we're hurting or we got empty holes that need to be filled and people don't know what to put in there. So we try to fill it with other stuff. Me, God, projects. I started woodworking really extensively. I garden. I take walks with my dog Dash. I do TikTok videos, anything to reach out and let people know that, there is some kind of normalcy and craziness and fun still left in the world. And, we don't have to get caught up in the noise. The 1% of the protests that's going out there with all the crazies, don't let that drive your life. Right? We got bigger fish to fry than bullshit. You know, we've been through a lot of stuff and, fill it with good stuff. There's veterans. Share your story. Man, we only have each other, right? We're all dying to get off this planet.
Absolutely. The mothership can come get us anytime.
Please bail me out.
Yeah, you're 100% right. In a world full of chaos and noise, boy, it can get to be a lot, especially if your mental health isn't in a good place and you're struggling already and facing certain challenges. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And granted, these are 1 hour interviews and we don't get to get into too much, but it's enough that others can hopefully walk away with understanding that you're not alone. You're not alone in this struggle to try to identify and re-identify with who you are. You have other brothers and sisters out here. If you find yourself in a position that resonates and you need some AA guidance, please feel free to reach out to Chief. I'm sure he would be happy to guide you. If you ever find yourself in a position where you need to reach out 988, please, or reach out to family, friends, anyone, just pick up the phone. Quitting is not an option. You don't have to do this alone. As I often say, we can't walk it for you, but we can walk beside you. Um, you know, Too often people think that reaching out is easy. It's not. It requires a hell of a lot of courage and strength to pick up the phone and ask for help. And it's not a sign of weakness. I always have to say that because it's a sign of strength to do just that. And I'm glad that you had it in you and that you're in a place in your life now where you're fine. I almost want to ask you, what's your mission? We started this live where you're like, what the hell's the mission now? What's your mission, Chief?
My mission is to be of service. You know, I'm retired, uh, 90% disabled. Can't get to the 100 mark. I don't know. Me and millions of other veterans. I can't get that extra 10%. They just don't want to do it. But that's all right. I'll keep fighting that battle on my own. My main battle, my main mission is to help other veterans. It's to help bring awareness. It's that 500-pound phone, right? It's not that hard. Reaching out, In my case, it wasn't even intentional. It was unintentional. It was driven by something divine, and I'm a firm believer of that. I didn't pick up that phone watching that commercial. I've seen that commercial probably a million times and didn't give it a second thought. And why did I call that one time? You know, Especially when I was at my bottom, right? That would have been the last reason why I would call that thing because I didn't want to be around anymore. So, mission is pretty simple: help other veterans, let them know that there's a solution. There is solutions to anything that you are going through right now. There's a solution. There is. I don't care if you think it's impossible. There's a solution. There always is. And I always start with my solution starts in one place now, and that's with God. I got to put my faith in Him. If it doesn't start out there, where am I going to go? How am I going to go? If I don't have my head in the right place, I can't help anybody, let alone help myself. So my mission is to help other veterans. It's this. Let's say you're not alone. You're here. We're here.
Love that. You keep
We're
fighting and
here.
you keep thriving. You're doing amazing. I'm really super proud of you. Thank you for taking the time today to share your story with viewers. If you're out there and you're a veteran and you'd like to get your story on my podcast, please reach out to Sunny. I'd be more than happy to chat with you and discuss a time. These stories matter, guys. They matter for so many reasons. And I hope for those watching today, you took something away.
Yeah, I
Um,
pray I wasn't all over the place.
nah. I appreciate you. At the end of the day, like Chief said, you always got to keep that cup filled. You need a foundation, and don't let the challenges perhaps today be setbacks. Start again. And you can keep starting again because you're the author of your own story. And no one can tell you when it's time to turn the page. You can choose to turn the page and start again. Never quit on yourself. Give yourself the same advice you'd give a friend: stay, fight. You're worthy, you're loved, and you're not alone. I thank you all for being here today. Much love to all of you. As Sunny always says, stay sunny, stay spicy, always make it count. Reach out if you'd like to get on the podcast and if you'd like to follow me on my TikTok platform, Sunny Side of Freedom. Veterans Night is every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Times. It's a safe space for our veterans to come together, uniting our veterans on and off the platform. Get to know my mission. Yes, I too have a mission, sir. I unite veterans not just on the platforms, but off the platforms. www.sunnysideoffreedom.net. Check it out. Much love, and thank you again, Chief.
Hey, thank you, Sunny.